Last time on Falcon Radio Theater.
Man, we were all set to go, had our scripts ready and everything, and then my car has to break down, and we're just outside of walking distance of the school.
And we go on in 10 minutes. How are we going to get back in time?
I don't know. We could really use somebody to help us out right now.
At this point, we need a robot from the future.
Wait, what's that? Is that a jumbo jet?
I think it's a Humvee, but bigger.
Wait a minute. Is that?
Hey, you guys want to ride in my enormous Hummer? It's half a city block wide.
Could this be, for real?
I don't care if it's real. We just got 8 minutes left. Let's just do it.
Okay.
Wow, that was fast. Although I kind of feel like we just doubled the size of the ozone hole by riding in this thing.
Yeah, but I feel like 10 times more manly now just by being in that car.
Good luck, guys. I love your show. Go break some legs.
I think that's only one leg?
Dude, I would correct him. Besides, we've only got 2 minutes. Come on, let's go.
Okay, Mike.
Check. Scripts?
Check. Cookies?
No cookies! Whoa. Where did that come from?
It's the Humvee, dude. It does things to you.
Weird. All right, let's do the show. And now, the next episode of Falcon Radio Theater.
Hi guys, welcome to the show for tonight. My name is Walter Lutsch.
I'm David Matsui.
And we're your hosts for the evening, along with our wonderful returning actress, Katelin Tremonte.
Hey everybody, happy Tuesday.
Alright. So before we quick get into our scripts, we wanted to, since it's only our third episode, and some of you may be new, we wanted to just do a quick recap of what the show's about. This is Falcon Radio Theater, and it's our attempt to resurrect the old and often forgotten art of radio theater, back when there weren't TVs and you had to get your entertainment over a little box. And also, we'd like some help from you guys, if you like the show, helping us out to continue doing it, because we're always looking for scripts and actors to perform them. So if you are a writer who fancies yourself good enough to write a radio script, and would like to see it performed, or actually hear it performed, then we're the place to do that. And if you're an actor who would just like to expand your acting resume and try out some crazy roles, we're the place to do that. So, if you are a writer or an actor, and you have stuff to contribute, then please shoot us an email at falconradiotheater@gmail.com, and that is theater spelled the old-timey way, R-E, not E-R.
And in addition to looking for writers and actors, we're also looking for listeners. So if you happen to know anybody that would possibly be interested, please go ahead and feel free to bribe them to listening to our show, because we'd love to have them.
Yep, and also if you are already listening to the show and you're like, I don't need to hear any of this, but you'd like to follow our maniacal musings and hear about what scripts we're going to do, hear about what commercial is going to be coming up next, then please follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Falcon Radio Theater, spelled the same way. And I think that's it, so we're going to get into our scripts. And the first one of the evening is called The Viking Funeral of Harold Olafson by Dwayne Yancey.
In the stuffy offices of a funeral home, the funeral director, staring out at his window, watches mourners arrive. He is wringing his hands and then suddenly starts yanking at his hair as more arrive. He spies his young assistant and, with a crook of his finger, beckons her into a private space.
A word, please.
The eager young assistant arrives. She suppresses her eagerness beneath a cloak of funeral home serenity and dignity.
Yes, sir?
The director looks around to make sure no one is looking.
What is that?
That's the service for Mr. Olafson, sir.
It looks like a science fiction convention.
It's a Viking funeral, sir.
A Viking funeral.
Yes, sir. Mr. Olafson said it was his express wish that he be given a Viking funeral.
He did he?
Yes, sir. She even decided to upgrade from the Serenity package to the Dignity package with the Special Memories add-on when I told her that we could accommodate any special request that she and the family might have.
I see. And those gentlemen out there?
The ones with the helmets and the horns?
No, of course the ones with the helmets and the horns.
Those are pallbearers, sir.
And those things that they're carrying?
I believe they're called broadswords, sir.
The assistant looks at her finger. A bandage is wrapped around it.
Quite sharp, too, on both sides.
I see. And the woman in the Those aren't proper mourning clothes.
They're Valkyries, sir.
Valkyries.
Some kind of angel thing. I don't claim to understand it, sir.
And those are actual mourners out there dressed like that?
Not exactly.
What do you mean by not exactly?
I believe they're pagans, sir.
Oh, that definitely looks like a pagan funeral to me.
No. I mean the pagan motorcycle gang.
You hired a motorcycle gang to be pallbearers?
You taught me never to question one's beliefs at a time like this. Just respect the family's wishes and give them what they ask for.
I did, didn't I? And Mrs. Olafson asked for a Viking funeral.
Yes, sir, those were her exact words.
And did it ever occur to you that by Viking funeral she might possibly have been referring to the Minnesota Vikings?
You mean the football team?
Lifetime season ticket holders, 50-yard line, football on the mantelpiece, signed by Bud Grant and the entire 1970s Super Bowl team.
Oh. So when she said she wanted the helmet to be with the horns on the casket...
Not those.
Oh.
O is right.
But with a name like Olafson, I figured... Maybe I can tell her those are really defensive linemen?
Maybe you can.
But that bonfire with the boat sure is going to be hard to explain.
The end. That was The Viking Funeral of Harold Olafson by Dwayne Yancey. The part of the narrator was played by David Matsui, the part of the funeral director was played by Walter Lutsch, and the part of the assistant was played by Katelin Tremonte.
For our next script of the evening, we've got Beijing Big Mac, a short play by Alex Broun.
Late one night, on a New Year's Eve in Beijing, Susanna sits by herself reading a book in McDonald's. In a different section of the restaurant, Len picks up his tray with a burger and Coke from the counter. He looks around the restaurant and, spotting Susanna, walks over to her table.
Can I sit here?
Susanna looks up at Len.
I said, can I sit here?
She looks away. Len sits down anyway.
Cold, isn't it? Bloody cold. Freezing my toes off. I don't think it's gotten above 0 since I arrived. It's the wind, they reckon, coming down from Mongolia.
Siberia.
Sorry?
The wind comes down from Siberia, not Mongolia.
Oops.
Len unwraps his burger. Holding it close to his face, he turns it over and then turns it around, examining it.
So, what do you think of that? I said, what do you think of that?
I heard you.
Well, what do you think? Take a good look. A genuine Big Mac.
Great.
I didn't think they'd have the Golden Arches in China. And now what do I find? Right in the middle of downtown Beijing Central. My very own Mackie D's. And since it's New Year's Eve, I thought, hey, a special occasion, treat yourself. Treat yourself to a Big Mac, Beijing style. Seeing the new year with a big bite. Well, here goes.
Len chomps down and chews the burger.
Hey, that's okay. No, it's better than okay. It's good. It's really good, almost as good as the real thing.
It is the real thing.
Sort of, but not really. Not really real, like back home. You want some?
I'm a vegetarian.
Then what are you doing in McDonald's? My name's Len.
Len sticks his hand across the table. Susanna stares at it and the ketchup on it. Len takes back his hand.
Oops.
He wipes it off on his pants.
So when'd you get in?
Susanna slams her book shut and puts it on the table.
You see, now that ticks me off.
What?
The way you immediately assume I just got in. Like the way you come over here and immediately assume I speak English.
Well, you do, don't you?
But that doesn't mean you should assume it. You don't know anything about me. How did you know I wasn't local?
I'm sorry?
You heard me. How did you know I wasn't local?
Well, I don't see too many other people with blonde hair in here.
Just because I'm blonde doesn't mean I'm blonde, okay?
Okay. Don't get your knickers in a knot.
I'll do whatever I like. I could have been naturalized. I could have been living here for years, but you just immediately assume that I'm not from here, that I'm alien.
So, you're not an alien. You're from here.
No, but that doesn't change my point. How would you have felt if I didn't speak English, huh? You just came over here and started blurting.
I wasn't blurting.
And I couldn't understand a word you were saying. How would you have felt then? Pretty stupid, huh? You would have felt pretty bloody stupid.
No.
Whatever.
Susanna turns away and begins reading her book again. Len goes to take another bite of his burger, but then pauses.
See, this is no good now. You put me off my Big Mac. On New Year's Eve, too. I said I'm not eating my Big Mac.
Do you know how much crap is in one of those?
Hey, baby, you're eating it, too.
I'm not eating. I'm drinking. Tea. Green tea. Without milk.
That's usually how green tea comes.
It's all I can afford. I only come in here because I've got a friend who works behind the counter. He slips me an extra tea bag for free.
Friend?
He lives with the family I'm staying with.
You're staying with a family?
I help with the chores and give him $5 a week. I sleep on the floor in the kitchen.
The kitchen? That must be hard on the bum.
Yeah, well, it's cheaper than a hostel.
That's where I'm staying.
Len looks back at his burger.
You sure you don't want any? I could pick out the meat and you could eat, like, the tomato and lettuce. Seems a shame to waste it.
What you paid for would keep my family in rice for a week.
Oh, shoot. I didn't know that. Only been here a week.
You don't know much at all, do you?
Well, if you don't like it so much, then why don't you go somewhere else? Leave this hellhole of corporate carnality and go find a little nice, genuine Beijing bistro.
I would, but it's too frickin' cold and I'm coming down with the flu.
Hey, you want to know a secret? A big secret?
No.
Come on.
Susanna finally looks at him.
I don't like it.
Like what?
Rice. I don't like rice. Guessed I'm stuffed out here.
Len laughs, and Susanna turns away. He looks at her for a second, and then reaches into his pocket, taking out his wallet. He opens it and pulls out a bill, offering it to Susanna.
Take it.
What?
Go on. Take it.
I don't want your money.
Sounds like you need it.
I don't need anything from you.
It's a Christmas present.
That was last week, and they don't really celebrate Christmas in China. Duh.
Well, you need a Christmas present then. A late one.
Len places the bill on the table. He looks at Susanna.
I'll just leave it here then, so you can think about it for a while.
Susanna throws her book down as she jumps up.
I said I don't want your money.
What exactly is your problem?
You're my problem.
I come over here, see a familiar face, just try to be friendly, and how do you treat me? Like a dog. Like a frickin' dog.
You're probably used to it.
I mean, we're countrymen, countrywomen, whatever. We come from the same home. I mean, we might have even gone to the same school. I'm all alone here, trying to get used to the place, and you just treat me like crap.
Maybe I don't want to run into someone from my country.
Why the heck not?
Maybe I came over here to get away from people like you.
People like?
Travelers, backpackers, Aussies. They come into a city, take some happy snaps, tick off the sights on their lonely planet, stomp around in some exotic bog hole, and then go back on the bus to the next stop on their pathetic little world tour so they can snap and tick and stomp all over again.
And you're different.
I live here. I've made a commitment to live here for 6 months, at least, to really experience what another culture is like, to live like the rest of the world does, to stop being so ignorant and stuffing my face full of Beijing Big Mac.
Well, I'm booked in for 2 years. I'm on a volunteer program teaching English. It took me 5 years to save enough money to come out here. My school is just down the road.
You said you were staying in a hostel.
Only till the woman I'm taking over from moves out of my house next week.
House?
Yeah, house. I think it used to be a mission. Real cozy like. There's a spare room, too. Maybe you could have used that. Still, I guess that ain't gonna work out now, seeing how you think I'm such a pathetic, snapping, ticking, stomping Aussie.
Len stands up and wraps up the Big Mac. He picks up his Coke and then looks at Susanna.
You reckon it's alright if I give this to that little kid out in the street? The guy at the school said you shouldn't give them money, but food's okay, isn't it?
Susanna nods.
See you around.
Len begins to leave the restaurant, and then stops.
You know, they're throwing me a party for me tonight at the school. Sort of welcome Len, New Year's Eve party all rolled into one. How's that? They don't even know me, and they're throwing me a New Year's Eve party, even though their New Year's is like months off. Pretty cool, huh?
Len leaves the restaurant.
My name's Susanna.
Susanna looks at the note on the table.
And that was Beijing Big Mac by Alex Broun. The part of the narrator was played by Walter Lutsch, the part of Len was played by David Matsui, and the part of Susanna was played by Katelin Tremonte. Now, before we get into our next script, we're going to go to and hear a quick word from one of our sponsors.
Welcome to Arnie's Prius dealership, where we have the best prices on Prius models in all of California, including the all-new Prius Arnie Edition. Yeah, the Prius is the most fuel-efficient car in existence, and now comes with twin rocket launchers, semi-automatic machine guns, and optional helicopter mode. Why drive to the chopper when you can flip a switch and you're already inside? Every vehicle comes standard with 10 inches of steel plating, 8-foot ceilings, and 6 feet of extra legroom. Don't worry about traffic, your Arnie Edition will flatten any puny smart car in your way. So drive your puny car to Arnie's Prius dealership. We will crush it and give it back to you as your complimentary bulletproof vanity plate. I guarantee this is the manliest fuel-efficient car you will ever drive.
Hey guys, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed that word from our sponsor. And now for our next script of the evening.
Our next script of the evening is Damsel Not in Distress by Dwayne Yancey.
On a beautiful spring afternoon, a knight in his shining armor comes riding over the crest of a hill. As he crests the hill, he sees something in the far distance.
Lo, what is that I see in yonder tower? Is that a damsel in distress? I shall rescue her.
The knight rides to the base of the tower.
Hark! O damsel in distress, come out. I am a knight and I am here to rescue you.
There is no reply.
Hark! O damsel! O damsel in distress!
Still no reply.
Hey, is anybody up there? I don't have all day down here, you know.
Suddenly, a damsel appears.
Who's making all that racket down there? You're gonna wake up the whole castle.
Hark! What light through yon window breaks?
That's from Romeo and Juliet. You're in the wrong scene.
Oh, right. Sorry. Lo, are you a damsel in distress?
I don't think so.
You're not.
Well, I'm a damsel, but no distress.
I see.
Why would you think I'm in distress? Just because I'm a damsel? That's pretty lame. Who are you, the knight of cultural stereotyping?
Sorry, I just thought...
Well, you thought wrong, didn't you, Mr. Tin Man?
What are you talking about? I remember seeing some yellow bricks back there, but I thought that was just from another construction set.
Okay, whatever. I'll play along. Are you my knight?
Yes!
My knight in shining armor?
The shiniest.
Actually, it looks pretty rusty to me.
What? Where? I've been trying to keep it polished.
I think you missed a spot. It's oxidizing.
Oh dear.
So, what are you doing around here anyway?
What? Right! I'm on a quest.
A quest? What kind of quest?
I'm searching for the Holy Grail.
Have you tried MapQuest?
I'm searching for wrongs to right. I am searching for my golden treasure. I am searching for damsels in distress.
Is this some kind of midlife crisis?
Tell me, fair lady, what manner of beast holds you prisoner in this tower? Is it an ogre? A troll? An evil stepmother jealous of your beauty?
Well, I'm not really a prisoner at all.
Ah, common misconception. It's called Stockholm Syndrome, where the captive starts to identify with their captor. Have no fear, damsel, I shall rescue you. Let me at this foul beast, I shall slay him with my trusty sword.
Well, that's quite impressive, sir.
Thank you, I've been practicing.
But actually, there's no foul beast.
What? None?
Nope.
No ogres? No trolls?
No evil stepmother either. My stepmom and I get along pretty well, actually.
I see. So what holds you prisoner here, then?
Nothing. I'm free to come and go as I please.
You are? Then what in the world are you doing up there?
I just like the view. It's quite scenic, really.
So there's no villain here, no brigands, no highwaymen preying on unsuspecting travelers?
Nope. It's all pretty peaceful, actually.
How about dragons? Surely you must be vexed by dragons.
Silly boy, don't you know dragons are mythical creatures?
Oh.
Suddenly, a dragon enters.
Wait! You're not real? Oh! Ow! Oh, that's hot!
The dragon charges at the knight, who jumps onto his horse and rides away as fast as he can.
Well, I never said I was an honest damsel. Darn. And it was Scaly's turn for Twister, too. The end. That was Damsel Not in Distress by Dwayne Yancey. The narrator was played by Walter Lutsch. The knight was played by Dave Matsui, and the damsel was played by Katelin Tremonte.
And now for the next thrilling episode in our weekly serials, The Adventures of Stanley and Bubba.
Last week on The Adventures of Stanley and Bubba, Stanley, an ancient demon-hunting monkey, forced to pretend that he is a stuffed toy, has discovered a demon disguised as a plastic flamingo. After witnessing the flamingo attack the humans who live in the apartment with him, Stanley has decided that he requires the assistance in getting out of the apartment and defeating the interloper. And so Stanley prepares to ask Bubba, a monk from a distant land trapped in the form of a Buddha statue, for his help. Meanwhile, Bubba too has been aware of the flamingo's arrival and is troubled by its resemblance to something in his past. This is the Bead Quest, Part 3.
Stanley scratches his ear nervously. Only twice before in his very long life had he ever required the help of another creature, and the second time he ended up finishing the quest all on his own just the same. Yet, as his ancestors had taught him, that if he ever needed help from another creature, he should ask politely and do his best to secure their help and understanding. It is for that reason Stanley spent many hours grooming his fur, practicing being polite in front of the shiny reflective surface in the bathroom, and trimming his claws neatly so as not to prick the palm of his stone ally when he shakes paws with it. And now that the hour has come, he walks slowly, balancing on his 2 back feet, up to the pitcher box upon which Bubba sits. In his quietest chattering, Stanley states very truthfully, that while he still does not like Bubba, he is on a quest to defeat the evil creature that has invaded their mutual territory and threatens the owners, and for that, he requires the assistance of Bubba. For his aid, Stanley would be most grateful, he comments, before rubbing his paws nervously in front of him. Waiting patiently, he glances up at the statue, only then noticing that the Buddha is preoccupied staring off into the distance and rubbing its belly thoughtfully. Bubba had not been listening to Stanley's very polite request for assistance. Unsure whether to chatter in anger or slink away in disappointment, Stanley does his best approximation of both, chattering quietly in frustration before moving away, his shoulders hunched and his face long from having wasted all the effort.
Bubba came out of another unsuccessful meditation. He shook his head in frustration before rubbing his belly. Even though it had been a few days, he was still a little sore, both at Stanley's outrageous actions and from being thrown into the invisible gates that led to the outside world. However, the monkey and his bizarre schemes were not really what was bothering him. Instead, he was puzzling over the unsettling feeling he had experienced when he first witnessed the strange, pink creature in the outside world. The creature had been interrupting his meditations for the last few days. He would close his eyes only to see the creature staring back. What bothered him was more than the creature's gaze. What really disturbed him was the strange sensation that went with it. A sense of losing oneself to something else. The fragile inner peace, the unity he had found over all this time, was threatened. The only solution was to regain control through meditation, which inevitably led him to encounter the eye, staring back at him again. And it was more than that. He sensed something that had come before, something very important to this event, something he had almost forgotten. Bubba had puzzled over what to do all yesterday and had made a plan. Even if his meditations weren't allowing him to regain control of himself, he thought they might just allow him to find the memory he was looking for. And with the knowledge of whatever it was he had experienced before now, that was linked to the now, he would be better able to regain control. But first, he would have to make sure he wouldn't be rolled into the invisible gates again as he was trying to find this memory. He glanced around and saw the monkey heading back towards the invisible gates. Stanley! Stanley whipped his head around at the sound, his beady little eyes focusing angrily on Bubba. Stanley! Bubba began and slowly started explaining his struggle and what he was about to undergo, making helpful gestures whenever he could. Stanley watched all this intently, focusing very carefully on Bubba's hands. So, I must not be disturbed for the next few hours. Do you understand? Bubba paused to see what Stanley's response would be. The monkey seemed to consider this a second before angrily chattering nonsense at Bubba. Bubba thought he could make out the words beads and evil somewhere in Stanley's rant, but he couldn't be sure. Bubba looked down at Stanley. Had the monkey understood anything he had said? Or was he incapable of understanding Bubba's language? Either way, Bubba knew any more attempts to communicate the importance of what he was doing would be misunderstood or ignored. Besides, he was still upset with Stanley from a few days ago. So instead, he decided to end the conversation and get on with his restorative meditation. If it is at all possible, try to keep your chattering down for a few minutes. Stanley stopped chattering. Thank you, Jungle. With that said, in a small, mischievous grin, Bubba returned to his perch, where he quickly sank into meditation and began his journey into the forgotten past.
Shoo!
Elder Chang stood next to the prayer wall, where there now lay a giant sheet of parchment. On it was some hastily scribbled calligraphy, which roughly translated said, "O great Buddha, bless the great elder with a wig for his shiny scalp." Shanshu came shuffling out to the prayer wall, his slippers skidding on the bamboo floor slightly. His robes were amiss, because when he had put them on that morning, he had been in a hurry to take care of a couple chores before anyone else woke. Shu bowed as he said, "What is it, Elder Chang?"
Shoo! Do you know where this prayer came from?
"No, Elder."
Buddha does not approve of lying.
"Yes, Elder."
Walk with me, Shoo.
They walked down the hallway, bowing to those they encountered along the way. Finally, they reached the back gates. The wooden doors stood tall against the outside world, with the iron latches daring anyone to contest them. Elder Chang stood facing the gates. Then, still facing away from Shu, he started assembling traveling clothes. "Are you going somewhere, Elder?"
No.
Elder Chang turned around at last. He had piled in his arms a pack of food, a rice hat, a goat's fur coat, and laying across the coat, a walking stick.
I am not Shoo. You are.
"I am afraid I do not understand, Elder." A solemn look now occupied the elder's face, and it worried Shu.
I believe, my misunderstanding pupil, that you have been locked up too long in here, and that your spirit is crying out to be free in the form of youthful disobedience. Thus I am sending you on a journey of self-discovery. Hopefully, after this, you will be ready to appreciate what the Buddha has in store for you. Now, let us get you ready for your journey.
As Elder Chang escorted Shu to the gates, he reached into the robes and drew out a string with roughly carved wooden dots along it.
And these are for you, for your journey.
"Prayer beads. Are you not worried that I will lose them or sell them, Elder?"
Ha! I think you are ready, my pupil, but keep them close to you, lest you should forget them and forget your way back to Buddha, for they will bring you comfort and protection on your journey. Now go in peace, my restless pupil, and may Buddha guide your steps.
Shu looked towards the inviting forest as he stood at the end of a rocky path from the monastery. He double-checked his pack to make sure he had everything, food, supplies, and the special gift from Elder Chang given to him before he left. Shu's plan was to journey through the forest and down to the village. Once there, he would mingle with the villagers and see what life was like free from the elder's constant disapproving gaze. He would miss Elder Chang, but to be free from the rest of it would be worth it. "I am free." Shu liked the word said out loud. It had a nice freeing sound to it. Shu smiled as he hitched his pack a little higher on his back and headed into the forest. The trees stood tall and erect on either side of him, their outstretched branches shielding him from the sun. All around him, unfamiliar scents and sounds bombarded his senses. The air carried a sweet aroma and seemed fresher in his nostrils than it had back in the monastery. The sounds that surrounded him were a comforting crackling of branches and leaves underfoot, and a buzzing of insects that generally filled the air. "This is the outside world. How at peace it all seems. Buddha must journey through here as well." Up ahead, he noticed a headstone in a little clearing. Walking over to it, he noticed it was a gray, unpolished stone that jutted out of the ground. A little pile of twigs was gathered in front of it. Shu paused to pray for the departed soul, taking his prayer beads out of his pack. He closed his eyes and kneeled before it as he was chanting. Suddenly, an angry cry rose through the peaceful sounds of the forest. Shu jumped at the sound and glanced around. The cry seemed a ways off and nothing to be concerned about. Then another cry rang out, this one more like a shriek than an angry cry. No longer willing to sit by, Shu gathered his pack close to him and ran towards where he heard the cries. He finally stumbled into another clearing where the sun shone down on a sight that made his blood freeze. A creature, with dark, matted fur and pointed ears, stood over a fallen dove. The creature's teeth were red, and a bit of the dove's flesh hung limp from its teeth. Shu froze, stunned by the sight of death and scared by the possibility it might still be lingering around for him. As he was deciding what to do next, a breeze blew by. The creature suddenly glanced up and noticed Shu. Shu was now staring into the creature's eyes, and saw something there that scared him more than the sight of death. In those eyes he saw a demon restlessly stirring, desiring blood, but even more anxious for something stronger to inhabit, someone stronger. A sudden clicking caused Shu to glance down. His hands were shaking, and clenched in them he still had the prayer beads. He looked back up, determined now to vanquish this demon with Buddha's power. However, he saw only the doe lying there. The creature was gone. Shu began creeping backwards, glancing right to left. The pleasant sounds and smells of the forest seemed to be gone. The only sounds he could hear now were the loud crackling of leaves underfoot, and a beat echoing out of his chest. His senses had never been this heightened before, and yet they all seemed to be failing him now. He glimpsed something scurrying by on his right and turned. Nothing. Just his eyes playing tricks on him. Shu sighed slightly and relaxed as a breeze tickled his nose. He sniffed again, trying to recognize a strange but familiar smell. It was blood. Whirling around, he just had time to see the creature lunging at him and raise his arm defensively. Shu and the creature hit the ground with a thud, a billow of leaves rising. The creature's teeth were sunk into his arms and was trying to reach his throat where it could snap down on it. Shu felt the pain surging through his arm and had to fight back a cry rising in his throat. He knew he couldn't keep the creature at bay for long, but he had no idea how to stop it. Then he felt a warmth heating up his hands. Glancing quickly to the right, he saw the beads again. They were glowing. With the last of his strength, he grabbed the beads, and with his other hand thrust them into the creature's face, screaming, "Len Ming Chao Tai Fu!" The creature went sailing back and smashed into a tree trunk. Staggering to its feet, it scampered off whining. Shu struggled to his feet, wincing at the pain in his right arm. Carefully, he bandaged it and headed towards the doe. He buried it and prayed for its soul before heading off again. When he reached the village, he had the local doctor clean his arm and bandaged it more properly. He told the doctor of his encounter, and the doctor's eyes grew wide.
You saw the demon of the hills, and survived. You must be quite strong, monk.
No, doctor. Buddha is. As the days stretched on, Shu felt better than he ever had. The story of his encounter with the demon had traveled quickly around the village, as those stories have a tendency to do in small communities. Shu was suddenly the town celebrity, with nightly invitations to the villagers' houses where he could retell the tale of his encounter with the demons of the hills. At first he had tried honestly to explain to the villagers that it was not through his own powers that he had survived the encounter, but this version of the story always aroused little interest from his listeners. So, Shu began to slowly alter his part in the encounter, each time contributing to his own survival a bit more. As he did, the responses he received from his listeners grew stronger. Within a couple of weeks of his arrival to the village, Shu had rendered the beast completely submissive, and only spared it due to his moral codes. The telling of the story also occupied a great deal of Shu's time now as well. He found he could not stroll through the village without someone asking him to tell them the story one last time. Shu also began to find he didn't mind being stopped. It was just the opposite. He loved it. 2 years went by, and Shu had grown quite accustomed to the village and its people. Although he did not recount his story quite as often now, he was still occasionally was invited to tell it and retell it. It was no longer, though, a story to Shu. It had been so long, and the story told so many times, Shu, like the villagers, had to come to believe the story to be true. As such, he received the hero's treatment he was given with pride. They did not ask him to help out around the village, and he felt no need to offer his assistance. At every meal he was fed the finest they had, and they even had begun to build him his own place to live at the head of the village. Yes, Shu loved his new home so much he had forgotten about the monastery, and why he had set out in the first place. A day or two later, one of the villagers came rushing to the village, announcing that another monk had arrived from the monastery. This was very rare in the village, and was always a special occasion, because monks were believed to bring good favor with the gods with them wherever they went. When Shu heard that a monk was arriving, he went out into the town square to greet the newcomer as well. He was quite shocked when he recognized the traveler. Elder Chang? Indeed, Elder Chang had arrived at the village. He carried a long stick in his hand, and a small pack similar to the one he had given Shu was slung over his back.
Ah, Shu, I am glad to see you in good health. How has your journey been?
It has been wonderful, Elder Chang. The villagers have been very hospitable to me. I have never yet gone hungry, and they see to all my needs.
I am glad to hear so. A monk should always be welcome wherever he goes. You have seen to their needs as well, I hope.
Yes, I tell them stories and keep them entertained.
Tell them stories. You have not helped them farm or seen to their cattle. You have not dug the wells with them or gathered sticks in the mountains.
Well, no, that is a peasant's job, not a monk's job.
Yes, he has told us great stories of his defeating the demon that haunted us. Shu has power like Buddha. Praise Shu!
What? Shu, what have you been telling them?
It's true, Elder Chang. I defeated the demon of the hills. Elder Chang stomped over to hear Shu, and grabbing Shu's robes, hoisted him up and threw him to the ground. The villagers all backed away.
Shame on you for making me do this in front of them.
Elder Chang motioned to the villagers.
Shame on you to take advantage of these villagers' weak notions of our religion. Shame on you for using Buddha to fatten yourself off of their labors.
As he said this, he jabbed Shu in the belly.
And shame on you for letting them believe you to be as great as Buddha. I had hoped that by sending you on this journey, the freedom would do you some good. But now I see it has made you worse. You are coming back with me to the monastery, where you will learn humility, or I will find some harsher discipline for you.
With that, Elder Chang yanked Shu up and dragged him out of the village as the young monk protested the treatment. Ah, Elder Chang, what a brash youth I used to be. I only wish you could see me now, more disciplined and much stronger. I could defeat that demon. But now Bubba realized what troubled him so much about the pink bird outside. That eye, staring at him, even when he slept, was just like the eyes of the creature of the hills he had encountered so long ago. The malevolence, the supernatural glinting, it was all the same, and it needed to be driven from this place, just as he had driven the creature of the hills away from the village. Even as he thought about it, he felt that stirring he had experienced earlier, only it was much stronger now, much stronger. Bubba then heard a clicking sound, the sound of his prayer beads moving together. He glanced down to see that his arm was shaking and his hand was clenched. He also noticed the glowing, though it was not coming from the beads. Instead, it looked as if it came from his arm. He held up his arm for closer inspection and found nothing. The glowing was gone. He shook his head, unsure if he had seen anything at all. Confused, Bubba looked up to see Stanley, sitting over by the invisible gates, but staring back at him, and then at the beads, and then back at him. "What is it, monkey?" Stanley didn't reply. Bubba saw a questioning look in Stanley's eyes that he didn't like. Then he remembered he was still upset with Stanley. He pointedly looked away, focusing on a plan to confront the creatures outside. He brought the pair of beads up to inspect them once more. They had helped him vanquish, or at least rid himself temporarily, of such a beast before. Maybe they would do so again now. Bubba nodded his head, trying to reassure himself, because without those beads, without Buddha, he would have no one to turn to. Bubba the Buddha felt a shiver go down his stone spine.
After an hour of watching the evil creature outside preen itself and kill more of his distantly related cousins, Stanley comes upon an idea. When Dave burns wood, he does it in an enclosed black box with an opening. This opening is doubtlessly cut there to allow the spirit of the wood, freed from its confinement, to rise out of the dwelling and into the heavens. Stanley is small and agile, and perhaps if he could climb this passageway upward, he could reach the outside. Hopping over to the black altar of fire worship, he gazes upward and chatters in exultation. If he positions himself in just the right way, he can spy the clouds far above him, floating on a blue sky. Setting his newly trimmed claws into the cracks in the stone, he begins ascending upward. To his dismay, he realizes that without the full length of his claws, he has very fragile purchase on the little cracks, and before he can get even a third of the way up the passage, he slips with a cry of dismay and comes tumbling down in a cloud of ash. Coughing and chattering in frustration, he attempts his climb twice more, only to fall far short of his goal each time. It is after he lands in a soot-blackened heap at the bottom for the third time that he notices that Bubba has once again come down from his perch and floated towards him. Bubba motions for the monkey to follow him, and his urgings are most urgent. Still angry about Bubba's ignoring him earlier, Stanley hesitates, chattering in scorn, before narrowing his eyes and following the rolling statue. Bubba leads him to the whiteboard he hears Dave speak of somewhat frequently. It hangs next to the front portal to the outside, and some arcane markings on it are left by Dave and his fellow dweller. Bubba makes sure he is looking and floats up toward the whiteboard, grabbing one of the black marking utensils and beginning to draw. As the bloated statue draws, Stanley becomes more and more excited as he realizes that this is Bubba's plan for hunting down the evil invading creature and killing it. Using the same floating technique that the Buddha utilizes daily, Bubba will boost Stanley up and outside so he can open the portal to the backyard and they can confront the demonic Puffbird together. Delighted, Stanley runs forward and hugs the statue as soon as he has come back to the ground, leaving big black streaks of soot all over. Grasping the statue's paw firmly, Stanley shakes on their new alliance and shoots off to begin preparations for their plan to kill the invading flamingo. That was The Bead Quest Part 3, written by Walter Lutsch and David Matsui. The perspective of Stanley and Elder Chang was played by Walter Lutsch. The perspective of Bubba the Buddha, Shu, was played by David Matsui, and the village woman was played by Katelin Tremonte. And right now we're going to go to a little PSA from someone you know pretty well.
Hello, this is Stanley the Demon Hunter. While our stories are occasionally exaggerated, demons are a very real threat. Now, I've already gotten some calls on the hotline, and I don't think you people really understand what demons look like. They are scaly, and often feathered, and usually have horns, with red eyes. They are not human-sized, and very rarely do they play metal music. Also, I do not take contracts on your neighbor's annoying chihuahua. That's not what I do. Remember, if you see a demon, call 1-800 Stanley kills all the demons. Thank you. Goodbye.
Remember, that's 1-800-782-6539, 545572558433336667.
Welcome back, everybody. So, those are all the scripts we have for you tonight. However, if you enjoy our weekly serials, please come back next week for the next exciting episode, The Bead Quest Part 4.
And have a good night until then.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, and remember, if you enjoyed the Adventures of Stanley and Bubba, there's a link now on the Facebook page where you can read more about them, should you so desire.
All right, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.